Let's just sit on the executive board of the Nation First Policy Research Center. We are collaborating with GRAAM with um, with GRAAM on this project, and we hope to do many other projects over time. Being a public policy professor, this is of course of special interest to me. I know this has been a heavy day already, and it has been heavy 12 days, but it is not over until it is over. But I think this is going to be a brilliant conversation that will follow. Having known personally Hemang and his ideas that navigate across academia and industry effortlessly. So I welcome you all for the last session or for the special lecture, uh, accrediting central training institutions. We have, of course, the keynote speaker, Mr. Hemang Jani, who's Secretary in Capacity Building Commission. He has, if there is one field sector that you can associate with Jani, it will be technology governance. And for most part of his life, he has engaged, well, he's trying to engage technology in governance. He used to work Prime Minister's office as OSD, and he is the force behind Atal Innovation Mission. He's worked in World Bank in DC, where also he was working in areas related to innovation. He's of course presently at the Capacity Building Commission, and I personally know the range of interesting public service delivery projects through public administration using technology that's been part of designing. He's designed innovation framework, and most interestingly, in addition to working with the government, earlier he has also worked in consulting groups. So he has a very rich background, and I think something that is rarely found, someone who could talk both in academic as well as administrative or professional spaces. So we're pleased to have Mr. Jani with us today. The chair of the session is Dr. Ravi Singh, whose bio reminded me of Onira television advertisement in the 1980s. Neighbors and new owners, right? Extremely illustrious work he's done. He's a physicist. He's done was educated in Varanasi, did his PhD in physics, also a postdoctoral fellowship, both in India as well as in Canada, particularly the University of Western Ontario. And he has held many administrative positions in addition to being an academic. For instance, he was the deputy director of KICT, dean in PTU. He was a founding vice chancellor of Sharda University. And he was also the director at IGNU before he moved to QCI. And now, of course, he's the Secretary General of the Quality Council of India, which is the name when we think about education. So we look forward to having the discussion. Or so I think what we'll do is we'll have around. Thank you, Dr. Singh, for being here. Accreditation is a word that comes from this French word that is broken between credit. So the source of the word is credit, and credit is essentially trust because something will happen in the future, but you trust something will happen. In fact, accreditation is an interesting thing because the roots of this idea, particularly in India, go back to thousands of years actually. In fact, Mr. Jani is from Gujarat, and he can tell you the largest diamond market in the world is in Surat, and practically no paperwork happens. Everything happens through us. So in a way, the community somehow creates an accreditation mechanism, which is informal in nature. And in India, this is how businesses are. Right? We do a lot of business. Considerable amount of business is done, by word of mouth. The problem happens when the scales become large, and so accreditation through these informal, methods become difficult. Problem also happen because many times you have to accreditate bodies or work and functions which don't have a quantitative. So for instance, if I want to see how good a student is who's probably planning to join my university, or for that matter, my center, I will probably look at the CV and look at the score. This is difficult. So in fact, one of the earliest accreditation globally has happened in the field of higher education, because anyone can say I can provide education, but you need a third body, independent body to vouch for. Right? In fact, in India, marriage is also happen through third party accreditation, because you can't really you can't really quantify these things. This becomes particularly important in training institutions because the responsibility of training institutions is to create, the workforce for tomorrow. And I think that is why this is an extremely important, and I would say probably less talked about. I think we should talk about this issue more. So please, I'm very happy that we have both Mr. Jani and Dr. Singh with us. So please, let me, with this, further ado, invite Mr. Jani on stage and to deliver his keynote lecture. After he speaks for around 30 minutes or whatever time so that you would like to speak, we'll have a question and answer session in which there will be some questions that will be, I'm told that this is streamed online, so some questions can come online. And after which I'd love if Dr. Singh can give some of his closing remarks and we will end this session. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Jani.
Thank you, Professor Goel. So let me tell you one thing first that I am luckier than all of you. In why? Because you are Dr. Palu's student, you got 15 days. I am his student since last 1 year. And we get to learn from him every day. So you can envy me a day. I will take pride. So Dr. Balasubramanian, thank you very much for organizing this program and inviting me. Dr. Singh and Professor Goel and all of you who have joined from various places online as well. Today's subject is a very dry subject because we don't talk about it very often. We don't talk about it in everyday life. And I heard that you guys here are here since last 15 days. And today is also a very hectic day. So let's have some fun. Let's listen to some music first. And then random questions. Has the movie been released? No. Anybody? How many are interested in any choose? Big song. Yeah, as it was. Excellent. Hindi music, anybody interested in Hindi music? No. Of the top of that study? Okay. Any movie can? Doctor Strange. Okay. Another movie that got released this week. Top Gun Maverick, right? Everybody, you guys didn't even know what Top Gun is. We had the Top Gun heads when we were your days, and we were wearing it in our classroom. So good. All of this is also related to two more things. Anybody applying for MBA this year? No. Anybody nominated for? Anybody recently visited any of the healthcare facilities? So the four things which I showed, the two music clips and two movies and these two institutions, they have something in common. Can you figure out what is in common? Anybody? Any guesses? Okay, first four things. What is common in? Huh? No. Asuri is from very It's more popular in US. Anybody also guess why these four clips, two songs and two movies, and Chicago Booth and Max have something in common? Okay, let me some excellent. Example. They are top rated, ranked, or aggregated somewhere. So first two audio clips. So Harry Styles, as it is Spotify top 50 global this week, and Kasuri is top 50 India this week. So they are ranked number one. They are at the top of the global weekly chart in Spotify. I hope you guys can read the development every month. The two movies, they are rated on IMDb. Which one are you going to watch? I'm going to watch Top Gun not because I watched the first one and I like the bike sequence. Because Top Gun has 8.7 rating and Doctor Strange has received only 7.6. Right? Anywhere we go, if you are on Amazon, what do you look? You have two similar products, two prices, two supplies. Immediately, where will you go? How many stars? Right? When a friend tells you to start or order something on Zomato or Swiggy and it's a new restaurant, what do you look for? How many stars? How many stars? So accreditation, rating, evaluation is there in your life every day. You just don't pay attention. And given the kind of workforce you are going to enter, given the kind of workplaces you are going to enter, these things are going to be really handy. Now, accreditation and other things are not going to be very, lengthy processes. You will find invariably all the startups doing some competition or some contest for rating their suppliers, ranking their consumers. Whoever ranks you, you are a consumer, right? So your taxi driver gets to know how many stars do you have. And you also get to know that how many stars. And it's a mutual evaluation happening every ride, every moment, every second. That is what we are going to talk. I am sure you don't know anything about central clearing institutions. You don't know anything about accreditation. But it's not rocket science. Even Elon Musk has even simplified rocket science. So this is even less difficult to understand from China. These two institutions, Chicago Booth and Next, what are they? Chicago is number one in the USA rankings of the top MBA schools. But Max is the top NABH accredited healthcare. If you are sick, if you fall ill, if you have an injury like me, it's not a major one. What will you look for? No, I don't want to go to any of. I want to go to the best, right? So intuitively, we rely on evaluations as a consumer. When you sit in any event, any place which delivers some kind of service, you will end up designing or implementing this evaluation. So that is the point. Now, what we are doing as commission, you know a lot, Dr. Babu, and you know a lot about the stability commission. Uh, what is our purpose? Our purpose is to make sure that the 3 million civil servants, 3 million, thank you, 3 million civil servants, they receive the best of the education, best of the quality training. Why did you enroll for this program? Because either you heard from someone that hey, Cornell and Dr. Babu GRAAM program is one of the best in program evaluation. Or some of the employers you have already seen that some of your friends who have got good employment out of it or good opportunities out of it. This is also a evaluation happening at the back of your mind. Right? So that is what we are doing. Now let us come to the subject. What is a central training institute? So all of you know about the Langbaru Shastri Academy. So any other that you know in your area, in your city, in your state? Anybody? Went to English from Maharashtra? Everyone from Yashda? Anybody from Mysuru? Mysore API? Yes. Anybody from yeah, police? Yes. Sweet anyway. Anybody from Nagpur? Nobody. Any emotional scene. We cross these academies. If you go to Masuri, we all want to see the gate of Lava Shastri Academy. If you are a civil service aspirant, you also want to, go there, be there. So there are 25 such training institutions in government. Once you qualify UPSC exam, then you go and get trained there. And they train you for anywhere between 12 months to 24 months to become a good civil servant. And that is what this central training institution. There are many, there are 33 similar institutes also which train the state civil services. People also call them PCS, public civil services. OTS, officers training school. Officers training school. So they are also saying they are also doing it the same job, but they are doing it for the state card. What we are doing is we are trying to create a quality mechanism to evaluate that. And now I will tell you about what all we have in our. This is the chart of where they are spread across. They are spread across all over India. You already know many of them. So what are the tools? If I am here to improve the quality, if tomorrow I give an option to a civil servant whether you want to go to Masuri or whether you want to go to SBM in Hyderabad, how will they decide? One, if as government it is a budget provider and it is a monitoring and supervisory role institute, if you want to know which institute is doing good, which institute is not doing so good, then how do I help them improve their quality? How will I decide? Then we have three evaluation or program evaluation tools in our. First is rating. You rate them in some order. Second is ranking, which you already do all the time. And third is accreditation. So what is rating? Rating is only a classification based on compared to assessment of quality, standard, or performance. So you will always say that oh he is the top rated professor. Why? Because he always gets rated every year very high, 5 stars, 5 star, 5 star. Similarly, ranking. You will invariably say that I will apply to top 10 MBA schools or top 10 public policy schools this year. If I don't get into top 10, maybe I will defer the admission and I will try again. So that is a ranking. It is a based on scale or hierarchy. There's only number one they say. Number two and below are not there. So that is number one. So this is the order of hierarchy that we do. And third is accreditation, which is actually an external recognition of adherence to a set of standards on which they perform. So when we are rating an Uber driver, we are doing some kind of a rating for them. But when Uber and Ola, we are comparing them on some parameters, which has been designed by, say, some transport department, saying that, okay, these cab services are accredited by our department. Then we are talking about some quality standards. In the first two, you are immediately talking about the user experience. In the third one, you are talking about some quality standards established by some authority or some agency like Dr. Ravi will tell you. And these standards also continuous improvement. So every year I can improve on my standards. Every year I can do some intervention and apply to a higher level or higher degree of standard. Or I can even aspire to become a higher degree of standard. As in writing and ranking, you aspire to become a number 10 school to number 1 school. Similarly, in an NMDH or similar standard, you aspire to achieve that standard every year. In something like this presentation, so you can look at it. When I explained that there are this accreditation, evaluation, rating tools available in your life, there are some serious efforts happening in the world. There are more than 90 plus very serious accreditation bodies globally. The food you receive, the kind of cloth you wear, the kind of metal or metallurgy related any product you receive or people receiving input, trade you do, the environment, the safety that is ensured, healthcare and higher education, two prominent things. You will never go and study at an institution which is not affiliated by some college. You want, hey, this should be an AICTE accredited institution. This hospital should be accredited by somebody. So there are 90 plus bodies you should know about them. You Google them, you will find many of them, and then you will realize that oh, these are the names which we see on the products. US FDA, right? These are the names we hear also. We never thought that these are important program evaluation bodies. Let me touch upon something the Professor Goyal already told you about the Gujarat. What is the history of accreditation? In early 90s, the medical field and education field both saw some sort of accreditation. So there were hardware, Pennsylvania, you can speak. And my Professor Goyal thought, they don't know. Every medical school should also match the standards of one of these. So Professor Johns Hopkins called Abraham Flexner. He thought, so why can't we have every other school across US or university apply or provide the same standard of service as Johns Hopkins? And that is how in 1990 American Medical Association became the accreditation agency and created this standards. Since then, many countries, including India, have created many other standards. But the point is, healthcare and education have been very prominently visible places where accreditation plays a role. Similarly, if you see some of the national frameworks, for example, even in Skill India, even the Swachh survections which QC did for the government, you have been hearing that hey, this city, Mysuru was number one, I think, and it's long time, long time. You know, you'll always hear chief ministers and municipal commissioners saying that hey, our city is number one. Even in one of the API rankings, doing business rankings, there were cases against two state governments and their consultants. When Telangana and thing, you know, I don't know the landscape. It creates a lot of competition, it creates a lot of motivation for agencies and for people to improve their quality, to improve their service delivery. So you will hear many of them. We hear a lot about NHS and other NABH and all other health benefit sectors. So how did we decide our framework when we were given the job of monitoring these 25 training institutions? We thought there is no way I can compare Police Academy with Administrative Academy with Audit Academy with some Telecom Academy without having some benchmark or some set of parameters on which we can compare. So we went ahead and we studied some 22 different accreditation frameworks, ranking, rating frameworks that have been used globally. And then we started designing our own standard with the help of QCI and other bodies. How this process happens? You will not end up doing it in your places every day or immediately. But someday you might have to do. So I'll tell you the process that we followed. It is a pretty standard step-by-step process. So first of all, you have to set some benchmarks and identify evaluation framework. That is what we did. We have 8 pillars on which we want the CTIs to perform. For example, I'll give you a simple example. When you go to a education institute, there is a director. It is always a highly rated, highly acclaimed personality or professor, right? You all look up to it. But tomorrow they make me the director of your academic future. Who is this guy? I don't know about. I don't even know anything about it. That will make difference. Because I'm not trained as a professor. I'm not trained as a faculty to teach. I'm not trained as a person, as a director to run an education institution. So we took one pillar as the governance pillar. How do you ensure that whoever is running the institute is qualified to? Second, we have taken pillars like are you even are you capable of doing faculty? If all of you tomorrow go and become a faculty in any institute, you yourself will feel in the first lecture that hey, it's very difficult to teach. I can't teach myself, right? I have done that. In the first slide, I was struggling in my first presentation. So teaching is an art and is a science. Professor, you have 3 professors who will agree to. Within central training institutions, because it is for the civil servants, we end up having civil servants as faculties. So we thought, why not have faculty development program? So fine, you are a brilliant civil servant. Many of you will also become in future, but you are not a brilliant teacher, or you are not a brilliant. How do we make you very quickly into at least a good faculty, good trainer? These are some of the criteria we decided. Once the criteria are decided, then the first step is to look science. Many times when you even fill out your performance assessment form in your organization, then they first ask you that, hey, how much, what did you achieve out of the set criteria? That is the self-assessment. You are saying that I was given this target by my manager and I have achieved even more than that, 150%, and that is why I should be promoted or I should be given the highest rating and I should be given the highest increment. That is self-assessment. So the institutions do their own self-assessment that on these criteria where we stand. Then comes the independent third-party assessment or verification. So then we hire QCM and we told them that, okay, these training institutions, they are rating themselves that, okay, we have very good faculty development program, we have very good governance structure, we have very good set processes for designing curriculum, and they say best. I have rated myself. This third party will go and assess it. That, okay, whether what they are saying there is proof to it. So in some cases there will be documentary evidence. In some cases there is some other kind of evidence like user feedback, consumer feedback, etc. So then the third party accreditation. Then an accreditation report is submitted by the third party. And that report gets debated between the submitter and the assessor who has done the assessment. And then the final decision is taken by the body. So in this case, CDC will take a final decision. Whoever the committee we have appointed, the committee will take a final decision. And then usually there is a accreditation cycle. You don't do it every year because this process, as I explained, is very lengthy. First you assess, and then you receive the report. It might take say 6 months time. So you have a 3-year period or some set interval on which you do. So if you are, say for example, if you are running a school and if you want to do accreditation, what do you do? You do it every 3 years. So that is the idea of it. So we are calling it national standards for civil service training institutes because there are no national standards right now. But if you say start manufacturing this glass plate, you will come across that there are some national standards that you have to follow on the size of glass, on the thickness of it, on the kind of material you can handle, the kind of quality parameters that you have to ensure. So that is what we are trying to do here with the Central Training Institution. I will repeat what done. We have already created the framework and we already piloted this in many places and still go to the 8 elements or 8 pillars that we have taken into consideration. The first is the operations and the governance. As I already mentioned, the governance of an institution. Now I'm coming to the topic of training institution or an organization. If you are evaluating an organization for any purpose, you can use these 8 pillars, more so for an education institution. Second one was the course design and training need assessment. How it is the faculty, because that was one of the important dimensions. Faculty is the input for training institute, right? For an education institute. So I want to ensure the quality of that input. Then training delivery mechanism, include resources and target commitment, training support. So you attended this program. Throughout the program, you received a lot of support, right? Somebody was there to answer your questions. Somebody was there to provide you a broken link. Somebody was there to provide you reading material. Somebody was to provide you some food as well in the afternoon. And if you have any doubts, you can WhatsApp or you can email it to Dr. Balu and somebody then they will answer. So training support, collaboration. For training institutions of this importance and this size, collaboration is very important. In this trait, collector and the superintendent of police, they function hand in hand. Right? Every day they will be sitting in one room and taking decisions, ensuring law and order. So we want to make sure that in the academy there is also they have a lot of collaboration and cross learning that happens between a police officer and an administrative officer. In these two categories we know because we see them every day. But if you go to a customs officer, if you go to a forest officer, they have lot of more important role to play in ensuring that our forests are safe, our animals are safe, there is no poaching, there is no illegal trade. So this kind of collaboration through this evaluation framework we are trying to ensure in the very beginning is they join the service. So we have we have in the framework you can create this way. We can create this with anything, any of the programs, any of the tools that you are designing for your action. What we have done is we have created it as a maturity model. That for each dimension, if you have certain parameter, you will achieve level one. And then you gradually mature to level two, three, four, and five. Level five is the highest standard to which we want to take on. Remember, in the beginning, Alexander thought that institution should be at the standards of Johns Hopkins. And that is why it was created, right? Maybe every institution did not have a. So they put one practice saying that we should have a library which consists of subscription to at least say 100 health journals. Maybe they put behind the subscription. This is the answer. Now what I would do is sub- subscriptions. Yeah. Okay, fine. If you do 20 this year, I will give you level 1. I'll give you say 20% credit for it. If you do say 50 next year, I will give increase your credit and you will achieve next level. So this is a maturity model which ensures that there is continuous improvement that happens in certain parameter. And you can use it for everything. If you are dealing with say an NGO who is providing you services, you can make sure saying that if you achieve this much user feedback, this much positive user feedback this year, we will make sure that you receive this much grant. Next year, if you improve it this much, we'll make sure that we increase your grant or your support also by that much. So I'm just making up the examples. I don't know your backgrounds. So this is what we did with this framework. This is just one example of how you define their status, but that is not very relevant or important for you right now. Really, yeah, this is also an yes. This is explanation of intelligence. What we have done is we have created a portal where this all of the CTAs will receive a login ID. First, they will go and they will key in their data and they will do the service. If you apply for a visa for any country, what happens? They give you a login ID. You go and you put a lot of your details, saying that I have visited this many countries. I used to stay here. I have lived in this many countries. Similarly, we have given a self-assessment form that takes you back. And then the process, as I explained, that starts. So this is what I have to offer you on rating, ranking, accreditation as tools for program evaluation. Not very rocket science. You can try it in your programs, you can try it in your relationship with either suppliers or service providers, or even if you have some customers or consumers and see how it works for you. I am happy available for any questions, but I'm sure Dr. Ravi will be able to answer them much, much better than me. So once again, thank you very much for all of you here and the online audience, and we'll see you soon again. So, thank you so much. I learned a lot. I I know there's a lot of work that Classical Commission is doing in this area. It was very new for me to know what is going on with this particular CTS.
I have some questions from our online audiences, which I will wait until which I can wait for. I'll invite some questions to the audience. If there are questions, comments, reflections on specifically what stands for, or even otherwise with respect to everything. So I think, yeah, the question is to here. You can also introduce yourself. So strongly that to work with services export. So as part of the council, we used to clock meetings with PIs for standard setting up services. So my question is that we of course have lot of meetings regarding what kind of standards we have. But what happens to the final dissemination to the stakeholders, the MSME exports? I mean, how dissemination of the standards, because the MSMEs have no awareness of these particular standards. So, what is QCI's role in dissemination of information to the final stakeholders? Yeah. I am going to, I think that's recording. So, one question. This is something which is missing out to an extent from the standards ecosystem. Primarily because when the standards are made, it needs to be first discussed with the industry before. Before the dissemination, which you call dissemination. Dissemination should not primarily happen to the standard. It is an innovation which you brought. Even though when a standard body has laid down this, what we do is, if the standard is made, and the agents which will verify whether that standard is being followed, which is known as conformity assessment. So you are conforming to the standards. So, so there are two things. Standard, which has to be uh, over since you are doing global, right? Then standards need to be at level so that every country has similar things. So it stands alone would ensure that your product is of the same quality and therefore the conformity assessment process has to conform to the international standards. So conformity assessment process, whether it is testing, certification, whatever it may be, it has to follow the same process which is being adopted elsewhere. So coming back, the dissemination of the standards is the responsibility of the standards body as well as the associations. Unless and until you involve association in disseminating information, and this it happens mostly when the standards are laid. There is always a transition. You give 18 months, 24 months, 26 months of transition time in which to prepare the industry to pull up and reach those. So this is how it is. So in the audience. Yes, yes. Indeed, it was quite a interesting state presentation. In rank, meeting, rating, and tradition. And I think most of us do see a lot of use of rankings, and sometimes it is so confusing that we really do not know the educational organization. Uh, they use different kind of rating for advertising purposes. So one, there is a huge amount of confusion about which ratings to follow and which are the really credible one, because some newspaper agency will publish one rating and someone else will publish something else. So how does is there a role to kind of look at this particular rating mayhem that was getting created? Um, this data, which one? Then now a follow-up question can I ask? Usually that results common misuse over in the ecosystem of what linking humans, naughty, few people are very, very there are two kinds of nation mechanisms that is means and qualification. Yeah. Education is you go and verify your aspirational standard of feeling. Aspirational standard because education is when you talk about these regulatory AICT, UGC, BCI, MNC, these are regulatory. They only lay down the minimum. Now, unless and until you have minimum standards, you would not be allowed to operate. These are the basic difference. Now, if you are proving some the minimum standards, and you are also accrediting for aspirational standards, and if you say that you have not reached the aspirational standard, but in the aspirational standard, so when I evaluate for certain mandatory things, and if you are not qualified, I with those mandatory things and take you for a you are not eligible for it. So if the same body is saying both the things, you understand this conflict. Because a lot of people do not understand this. If an affiliation body is saying that my mandatory parameters was that you should have a building of 1 lakh square, which is the standard, which is the minimum standard. Then you did not comply with it. Therefore, I will not take your case up. It means the same one and in contradiction to the approving it. Right? So what happened in India? That these accreditation bodies are separated out from the regulators. UGC, earlier NAC was under UGC. It became independent. NCT had NBA, National Board of Accreditation, reverse. QC was in fact created for accreditation of products and services. It was an independent body. It allowed me, it was QCI. And the government was there. QCI would not be funded with whenever you take money, you are accountable to that government. And therefore, QCI was established as a government fund, not government, and that's through arm's length of account. I don't have to honor whatever you are asking me to. Right? So in such a scenario, if you are talking about ranking and rating, being given, you must understand whether this particular organization is away from any part. So if a magazine is taking money from you, isn't it giving you
ATI or CTI is giving money to the accreditation body. And, and therefore CBC's role is very important. Whatever money is to be paid to an accrediting body, it has to be come from the client, not from the team. So if you are going to evaluate which is good, which is bad, then you have to see that the accreditation body is available. In association, you might have everybody agrees because it is governed by a government organization. There is no one. Okay. Did I answer you? Yeah, I think so. So you can phone. Just one thing which I would like for operational order, which we have. Many times when we look at trading and I think you look at the common. If I am assessing two people, are they giving me a common standard on which they are, right? So that is what happens. For example, the example I took IMDb, everybody has an IMDb score almost, right? I can compare them. But you will see invariably newspaper and they will say that XYZ has rated them. That XYZ has not rated anyone else. So I am definitely the lower runner. I think that also becomes important. Who is the accredited body? Who is, and that I think we should look for more. Any other questions? Yes. I'm Suchit. I'm from Quality Council. It's an open question. So does having multiple accreditation bodies in one sector, dilutes the difference of accreditation? No. It depends on what ecosystem you're in. Developing nation, it may not be the most desirable. For a developed nation, if this is also nation has developed over the years. For example, if you look into US, there are several accreditation bodies. They have specialized in different things. In India, if it has more than one accreditation, there will be absolute dilution. And therefore, we are not mature enough to have one. See also, I go back to the earlier point. How independent is your accreditation? You have multiple bodies that attach to different agents or different wipe up and then it is a problem. If you have more, if the independence is assured, then but in a country like us, when size is not very large in many sectors, it may not require. Those sectors. If I can explain my own situation. So it's fine. So in government, I think this makes sense. But many times accreditation could be done by private bodies. For instance, that happens in university rank. So you have times higher education ranks universities, and you also have QS ranking, QS which ranks universities. And then you have something which is called the Shanghai Jiaotong, which is AWH. There are more than one type or benchmarking bodies. Generally, their focus becomes different. AWH, which is the Shanghai Jiaotong rank, they focus more on extremely high quality research covered by spaces. So if your university is not doing very good in research, for QS slightly better chance, science education slightly good chance, for example. So because the rank weightages, and so people would choose. But in the government, I think I would agree because this is otherwise I think the but so yeah, and very many questions. There are two questions waiting from the online audience as well. Are there other questions that we can take up from people here? Yeah. So let us read out both the questions which have come to me from the internet. And I'll direct them to both the answers. Which stakeholder groups will be involved in evaluation of the training institutes? Funders, training institute,
people attending training, which stakeholder? So this is the first question. If I can also read out the second one. How can we involve citizens in ensuring outcome evaluation? Services like Uber, Ola, and even Google ask us to rate the services. Can we have a simple mechanisms? Can we have a simple mechanism to make citizens rate the ease of accessing services?
So I think, of course, all the stakeholders will be involved. And the second question becomes one of the most important stakeholders, the citizen or the services. So we are also trying to create parameters where the services that are delivered by the officers to either direct citizen, any of the civil servants end up giving services to other departments, other internal consumers, right? So how do we create that feedback mechanism also part of the process? Ultimately, when I'm training somebody to deliver a service, in service delivery also gets counted. That also they are moving towards, it's not part of the first year framework, they are moving towards at least in terms of trainings. That when the training academy delivers any training program, do they, for example, recently we tried this with railways. We have we have started, launched a pilot program in railway to train 100,000 customer facing staff, the ticket checker, ticket window, etc. Then we did one baseline survey of consumers or the citizen first to assess the level of service and also to assess identified conflict points or the improvement areas. And then the training program was designed. And now after the training program is completed, the same survey will be repeated to understand the level of improvement. And similar measures will also become part of the framework.
There's one more question. Your answers. In the United Nations, we see mostly third world nations have been the rate. Any regarding this?
Of course, there is no doubt about it. Because the rules are made by people who had deep pockets. That is why when our president our own standards, when the prime minister talks about one nation, one standard, when we talk about Atmanirbhar, we always tend to believe that we have been discriminated against. And that is why, what do you think? We don't have institutions in the first 200 of the world. Of course we have. But the parameters are different. It's just the parameters are different. We have not been able to break that seal. And now this realization is, and we will take more time. Because when you talk about diversity, you talk about people coming from different countries into the higher education system, when you talk about research, and that too in a peer evaluated journal outside the country, then there is a discrimination. So we are discriminated against, and we need to understand that and work towards removing all this.
And you like I'll also respond to this question because there's some research work that we are doing in our sector, in Plain University on the politics of indices, as Dr. Singh was saying. So what happens is that you will, for instance, hardly find ranking of, let's say, I don't know, the mental health issues or suicide rates. You will find rankings which will put similar type of countries on the top if you look at those in most of these rankings. And many of these rankings, particularly for instance, let's say FAO does the ranking of the hunger index, right? The hunger index often looks at many of these parameters which are height and weight, for instance. Now, genetically speaking, Indians have a short height, and so in a number of those parameters, by virtue of the variable chosen, the ranks are numbered. In fact, we were doing some numbers, and you know, people in India often have a worse ranking in hunger index compared to sub-Saharan African countries. And this is only possible if the ranking metric has been evolved in such a way. And I'm not trying to say that this is done deliberately, but surely there is a lot of politics. Environment rankings on environment, for instance. India and China are the only countries that have added to the growth of green cover. Nature recently published, but the rankings are low because per capita emission is very low in India, right? But that's all kinds of things. And so there's like I was saying, there is now this course emerging of and many of these rankings, by the way, for instance, the rankings for the credit of a nation, right? So Standard and Poor's ranking, many of them have subjective opinions. So, for example, liberal index, I forget the name of the index exactly, how free a country is certain. But many of these rankings are done on the basis of surveys done by stakeholders. And these surveys are very subjective because they often go to some specific group of people, even though it's done rigorously, but people's own decision. Like it's very famously said, which is also that question that I want you to ask in this session. All that counts, or all that is counted, does not count, and not all that counts can count, right? And one of the problems in these rankings and ratings, benchmarking, which of course is a by definition, and something that I often think about is because many of these benchmarking depends on numbers, and some objective parameters that are coming out. Often many things that need to be counted often. So, for instance, in university rankings, there is hardly any point in all the three university rankings I was talking about, hardly any points allotted to teaching because you can't really rate it. How do you rate it? And so therefore teaching is, so American universities, for instance, which are always top in these rankings, are in the business of risk. They're not in the business of teaching because the promotions of faculty members, the grants given, they're all based on research. But in a country like India, we need good teachers also, but there's simply no metric for doing it. But I was very happy to know that, in your metric, that is what the eight parameters, one of them is that. Yeah, that is.
So many times what we have observed is availability of information and awareness among the institution itself is very good. At times those parameters are so easy and we already need them. We don't have that information. We don't collect that information. We don't collect that feedback from say customers or consumers. Many times it is only a question of one membership fees. We don't have the membership perhaps. We don't have a mechanism or process document. So those are simple things on which we ignore because nobody asks them. That also becomes very important. I think we have reached
Yeah, I see. Yeah, please.
Let me give you a very lucid example of how countries use the standards as well as NTFs, non-tariff pressures, to negotiate bilateral. You all might know that India has somewhere around 40 to 44% of market share in US for generic drugs. You know that? So India is one of the biggest players generic drugs in the US. In one of the bilateral discussions, what happened was that US started imposing themselves that you will have to meet certain standards. And that was, in fact, not conducive to the Indian pharmaceutical industry. Earlier, we used to step back and plead for market access. This time, there's standards changed. And the standards are little your standards. But you will also have to adopt our standards for all electronics, including business testing from 25 degrees Celsius across the world. India said we will test it on 50 degrees Celsius. And on 50 degrees Celsius, all this will cast. And they have a major stake into the food industry alone. And they immediately step back and say, no, please don't do this. We are allowing you access. So this is reward to eyeball games. He knows much.
Well, thank you so much. I think this was clearly enriching. I think I invite Kumar for release of what time to take.
Thank you. So it's my pleasure to share that little impactful work which GRAAM is doing.
we are happy to release one of the recently completed evaluation studies in Karnataka on the senior citizens pension schemes. I would like to invite Dr. Suraj, the director of GRAAM, and also Ms. Diti Vidya, the trustee of GRAAM, to be here to release this fact sheet that you have developed along with the guests on the dais. I request Dr. Suraj to please facilitate this.
Yeah.
So much releasing this fact sheets. Really, so as I keep telling GRAAM, so we named it as a notification. We always believe that doing study is not the end of the GRAAM's work. Actually, that's the beginning of our work actually. So after this study, the constants of the effort of GRAAM, Government of India, Karnataka considered enhancing pension amount to the beneficiary. So that's something with satisfaction of users, your valuation, etc. When you see our data translate into story and tell them communicates the problem to the policymakers and they react to it and translate into action. So that is when researcher can really get elected. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suraj. I will now invite the chair of the session to give us a closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Goyal. Hemang, thank you for laying down the foundation of a very important activity that CBC, only CBC could do this. Because this whole island that we have built up over the year needed a little bit of thinking. And when the Prime Minister started the capacity building commission, he gave it in the hands of some very able people. And they have started this act. And you all might know that accreditation is a process, has three components. One is the input process and the output. The outcome. If now input, we are not primarily touching upon this. This is provided. It's independent. They are good. The process, he is looking. Some part of outcome also. We're trying to evaluate in this particular grade. But eventually was asked on the questions. One question which was online is, can you involve citizens in evaluating the performance of the services? Service which is offered cannot be individuals. There might be a good person here who listens to the citizens. But eventually everybody wants to know, or everybody aspires that what do you see in a public service? Sure, you are from public institutions. And you must have heard or you must have interacted with the common citizens. They have aspiration. Because most of the time, the civil servants do not easily access. So a common person, if he or she is able to reach to meet a public servant, He expects that you will listen to him and you don't enthusiasm. You will solve. That is what his expectations are. And if you are not able to listen to me, or if you are not able to follow up on whatever you have given assurance to me, then the service is not delivered. And therefore, it would be a very important exercise to take this forward to that level of service delivery with a common sense. One of the standards which is oft repeated around the world is the Malcolm Valuation, which always talks about the leadership. So, in this entire ecosystem, leadership is going to be very the governance, the pillar one. Think about our IAS officer wanting to be the head of training academy. Is it an aspiration for most people? Is it? I don't think it is. It is considered to be a punishment to go to a training. When you know that this is one of the most important aspects of the civil services to conduct, then you will have to think of how to build this leadership into this system. Maybe you can invite applications for people who want to commit themselves to head a training institution and then see them. Individual leaders have changed the entire dynamics of an organization. And that is where India still lacks. I'm very sorry to say, but yes, we do lack educational institutions. You look around, you go and talk to people, very few people will tell you that he or she is deserving to be a director of business. Why? Because peers are not selected. So accreditation mechanism will have to be built in such a so that all these components intermix and create a system which can sustain over. Lot has been talked about. So thank you very much for inviting me. I have learned a lot. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. In fact, I'm reminded of the 1980s and 90s. I don't know, some of you may remember it all, at least we can. Back in the days, there was no second-hand car market in India. And I'm telling this story for a reason. Particularly like, what's happening to training institutions and that is not being aspirational. So second-hand car was not aspirational. So this economist from the US comes to India and he realizes there are people who want to sell second-hand cars. There are people who would like to buy cheaper cars, but somehow the market is not matching. This guy writes a paper called The Market for Lemons. His name is George Accrediting, who won Nobel Prize in Economics in 2001 for a paper that he wrote, which kind of changed the way we look at economics in the 1970s, because he found an anomaly in India on second-hand car markets. It is, and by the way, right now the second-hand car market exists because there are all kinds of websites that kind of accredit these cars, right? And in some ways, accreditation therefore is as central to the evolution or evolving of markets, right? Or the competition that Jani was talking about, specifically for training institutions. But it just occurred to me that there's an interesting parallel there. Thank you so much for joining. I would like to sort of thank, of course, GRAAM, Cornell, their participation. Nation First Policy Research Center, on whose board I sit, some of my colleagues are sitting there. So thank you for coming. I'd like to end this session now. I think it was very useful for us. So thank you so much, the guests, Mr. Jani and